It is time for the environment to get its due. Okay, it is time for the environment to feel our wrath. Water is not water, according to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court weakens Clean Water Act protections. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling in Sackett v. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, so against the EPA, reinterpreting the Clean Water Act to eliminate longstanding protections for millions of acres of wetlands. 5 justices on this new conservative court narrowed the definition of waters of the United States, often referred to by the cool kids as WOTUS, limiting the reach of the act, one of the most successful, effective, and widely supported pieces of legislation ever codified in the United States. So basically, the Supreme Court has found a new way to make sure we are destroying, making toxic, just obliterating more of our environment around us. Because for too many years, I've been saying this forever, for too many years, the environment has just not suffered. You know, the environment's just been kicking back, loving life, not suffered at all. So luckily, our Supreme Court has jumped in and said it is time for the environment to get its due. Okay, it is time for the environment to feel our wrath. Because, you know, the environment, think about it, the environment does rough stuff to us all the time, right? It's always coming at us. There are hurricanes, there are tornadoes, there are earthquakes and volcanoes, and sometimes little bugs that bite you, like bed bugs and shit. All that is the environment coming at us, and it's time we got them back. So good on you, Supreme Court. Teach the environment a lesson. The court's decision to hear the Sackett case as EPA was finalizing its new regulation was highly unusual and marks the latest instance in which conservative justices ignored traditional principles of judicial restraint in their haste to rewrite laws that protect people and the environment. The Sackett decision undoes a half-century of progress generated by the Clean Water Act. More than 100, and believe it or not, this is how far right the U.S. has pulled. The EPA and the Clean Water Act were put in by Nixon. So now literally our whole country, including many Democrats, maybe most Democrats, are right of Nixon. And they're still called Democrats or left. It always drives me nuts. The mainstream media calls that left. That's not left. It may be what's left of fucking government, but it's not left. It's not left wing. These are right wingers, whether Democrats or Republicans, right wingers who are destroying our environment, which is already largely destroyed, right? We've killed 50% of all wildlife over the past 40 years globally. And we're looking for new ways to exploit the environment. And so here's the Supreme Court stepping in and saying, you know, the swamplands, the wetlands have really been overly protected. Well, really overly protected. More than 118 million acres of formerly protected wetlands now face an existential threat from polluters and developers. The court's decision to deregulate wetlands will hurt everyone living in the United States. And many of these areas, they're kind of the last remnant of what has allowed us to still live in this country, allowed us to continue to survive. Because if you eliminate you cut down all the trees, you eliminate the insects, all these things live on top of each other in symbiotic relationships, right? So you get rid of the trees and the plants, then you get rid of that causes the death of the insects, which causes the death of the birds, which causes the death of the larger animals. So these things have a spiraling effect. So just because you don't live in a wetland, just because you don't live in a protected area, does not mean you aren't enjoying the benefits of the fact that these areas have been kept somewhat less toxic than most of the other areas of our country. So here's the Supreme Court jumping in, saying, time to gut the wetlands. This really is horrific and, you know, is getting very little coverage because most people, including the mainstream media, do not care about our environment, truthfully. And many people, even on your independent media, even the people you may watch on YouTube that are somewhat suppressed for the things they're saying, many of them don't have many environmental stories. And of course, without the environment, I feel like our lives would kind of suck because you would die. Like, that's so important to have the environment if you want to be breathing and living and stuff like that.